Hi, I'm Stefan, the BMW DIY guy, and I want to show you how you can easily install an M Performance M2 CS style rear diffuser in carbon fiber on your M2 CS. All right, so let's walk through this process a little bit. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna be taking the rear bumper cover off, because as you take out your diffuser, you wanna make sure that the new one goes in very, very secure, so it doesn't move at all and looks perfect throughout. So taking your bumper cover off is not hard. We just have to take it in a few simple steps as we go through. It's really just gonna be a series of bolts and unplugging your PDCs. And it's a process where you just want to be careful when you do it, because the last thing you want to do is ding up your bumper cover. So let me show you all of the steps of what we're going to do. I'll walk you through it and we'll get it off and we'll get the new diffuser on. Okay, so one of the very first things we're going to need to do is take off your tail lights so we can get to a couple of additional bolts. These are held in by 10mm nuts here and here behind these little covers, so you just flip them down. And then you're just gonna grab your lights and you can get a grip on them and just work them back out. Go ahead and unplug them. It's a little pressure clip and unplug them. So go ahead and pull off both lights, and then I'll show you all the bolts we're gonna need to do to take the cover off itself. All right, so there's a grip right here on the inside where you can get a hold of the light assembly, but sometimes it'll really jam up really tight, because these bolts are the only things that are holding it on, other than a little post right back here. Sometimes if it feels like really tight and it's not coming out, you can take a plastic trim tool and put it back here very carefully along the edge and just apply a little bit of pressure and it'll pop right out. So just work it out under the rain track right there. There's the plug right here. You just depress the little tab on it, and then your light will come right out. So go ahead and do that on both sides, set them safely aside, and then we're gonna walk through the rest of the bumper cover. All right, so forgive a lot of sun and shade right now as the afternoon sun comes out. So it's gonna be a little bit hard to see on the wheel well right here, but you've got 1, 2, 3, right, tucked right there, 8mm screws. So go ahead and take all those 3 out, which is going to allow you to flex the wheel well out, because there's a screw that comes up right here holding the corner of your bumper cover on, and we need to be able to get to that. And I'll show it once I've got this gapped out. But you've got 1, 2, 3 in both wheel wells, and then you can take the corners out. If you look underneath right here, you're going to see another series of 8mm, and there's actually 3 of them, 1, 2, 3. So if you want, you can take out all 3 on this side at the same time and be good to go. There's also more across the middle that I'll show you in just a moment, because we'll have to be underneath the car. But as you can see, when we look at this now, you can see all the little clips where this all just kind of clips into place on these little brackets, right? So you can see why you have to have the light out. And there's even little interlocking tabs that kind of come up and snap in right here that we're going to press back. But you can see why we have to take the lights out to be able to get this off. Okay, so let's go ahead and loosen up your wheel well, take those bolts out, and take this corner post out. It should be another 8mm. I'll confirm as soon as we get to it. All right, so the bolt you're going to take out. So I've got all the liner loose. I've got my light jammed in here right now so you can see it. But if you look and you can see the silver right there, that is the T20 bolt that's driven straight up here to hold this corner into place. So what you're going to want to do is pull back the fender lining, get a T20 up on there, and back that bolt out. And then this will start to go loose. As your bumper cover gets more and more loose, be very careful that it doesn't, especially once you do the other side, that it doesn't fall off. That would be a huge drag. But we still need to get everything underneath as well. So let me show you that next. All right, as we look here underneath, I already have some bolts out, but I just want to point them out to you as I was doing my test fitting earlier. So there's a whole series of 8mm you want to take out. 1, 2, 3 here on the corner. There'll be a plastic rivet right here, so you pull out the center pin, and it's the same on the other side. Then you'll have 1, 2, 3, 4 plastic rivets. Now, it's a little bit hard to see with the shade right now, but if you look up right here, and you can see one of them, there's also 1, 2, 3, 4 more 8mm bolts. Now, when you take all of that out and you have the wheel wells done as well, your bumper cover is loose with the exception of the clips up by the taillights. So as you start to pull this off, you might want an extra set of hands because what you don't want to do is stress your PDC cables or sensors up here, because as you pull this away, you're going to want to reach in, depress the tab, and unplug your PDC sensors and carefully set this aside. But the last thing you want to do is scratch all this. So go ahead and get all of that off and very carefully take your bumper cover off. All right, so this is the point, like I said, you really want to be careful. It is completely loose at this point on both sides. If your tabs here under these little locking clips, if they give you any trouble, use your plastic trim tool to get underneath, because again, this is plastic on plastic. You don't want to scrape or scratch anything up. But the whole thing is loose, so I've kind of gently pulled from one side, gently pulled from the other, and as you can see, it's just shifting away now. So this is the point where you want to be very, very careful. It's difficult to show you on the inside where the PDC sensors are, but they really are those same depressed tabs and pull off. Don't crank on them. I've broken a PDC sensor mount off and it's a drag to get to remount. So just very carefully pull this out like I am right now. Like here's my center one. Just depress the tab and just very carefully rock this out. And you'll hear the tab click a little bit. So there's one right there. Hopefully you can see that. So, and there's 4 all the way across. So just work your way gently across. Now, with your bumper cover itself, you want to be very careful. Remember, do not put it face down. And if you put it reversed, it tends to want to tip over. So you have to be very, very careful as you do this, right? So what I usually will do, and just use what you have. If you set it down on a table, it might not stay. So actually I've got 2 camp chairs with padded arms. Okay, so there you go. So there's all 4 right there. And then it'll just set away. So I've got 2 camp chairs with padded arms that fit this thing perfectly that I'm just gonna set it on. So let's go ahead and go over there and we're gonna walk through securing your new diffuser. All right, so yeah, I've got them sitting on 2 padded arms of camping chairs. Works really, really well. So you can see your existing diffuser. It comes through in a series of locking tabs, which is why you can technically take your diffuser off from the outside, but it's very hard to get the new one secured properly if that's the case. In addition, you've got these 2 additional pieces here and here. These are like these little locking plates that go over fingers here, and they help lock into the tabs here. So you can use your plastic trim tool to go ahead and take those off. Now, if we can transfer those, we will, but I have a feeling they're not going to, which is okay. Now, the other thing you're going to want to do, when you look at these tabs, you can see they're big and wide and have little ratchety fingers on them to make them stick in very securely. Your new carbon fiber diffuser doesn't have those, and the tabs that come up are very narrow and thin because they're carbon fiber. So what you're going to do is you're going to want to take probably about an 1/8 inch bit on your drill and punch holes in all of those tabs, and I'll show you what that looks like in just a second. But at least 1, 2, 3, and 1, 2, 3. The middle ones are going to be a little bit more problematic, and I'm going to take a look at that in just a minute. But we definitely want to do the outsides, and then we'll also see if we can get these back on as well. So let's go ahead and get the other diffuser. Okay, so as we look at fitment, and you're really faced with a series of choices. Okay, so let's look at these plastic pieces first. Now, you can see it doesn't fit quite square. There's a little bit of gap. Now, you're never going to see this gap. And it may be that this piece is warped from temperature a little bit, but I don't think so when I measure it against the OEM diffuser. So I think we've just got a little bit different fitment. So as you can see, it's never going to compress down into that space perfectly, but it does close that gap a little bit. And it gives you can see where the existing tabs come through here and here. Now, I think you could potentially leave this off and be okay. You'll have just a little bit of extra gap here. As you can see, all this does is really just kind of just reinforce the existing connection. I mean, it really doesn't fill any space whatsoever when it's not there. I mean, all you're getting is probably a 1/2 inch or less of a little bit of plastic right here that's exposed. So this space is open normally anyway. So I don't really particularly see the value in these as is. Now, when you look at the center tabs, they do come in really far, and depth perception right now might be a little bit hard to see, but when you press on this, they come in very, very far. So I'm going to want to make sure that these have good grip and they're sucked in as far as they can possibly go. Now, I don't necessarily think zip ties are going to work all that well. So as I look at this, I may really potentially drill holes, like I've mentioned before, and actually might use plastic rivets, because a plastic rivet would go straight through and act like a peg to hold it in place. So, all right, so as you can see, I've put in a series of holes on all of the tabs. Now, this is a 1/4 inch drill bit, because that is the perfect diameter for one of these expanding OEM rivets. These are the exact same rivets that you took out of these lower positions here, and also the one on the corner here. I happen to have extra. The part numbers for this will be in the video description, so make sure to check that out because I'm going to use some extra. So because of the way these tabs come into place, I found that using zip ties just doesn't work, which I've done before and I've done on other cars, that it would pull the tab out of position or it wouldn't pull it in tight and there would be a bit of a gap. So what you really need is a post. You need a post that comes through the tab and expands and holds it tight. So I'd already drilled small holes in these for the zip ties, and which were not big enough for these expanding rivets. So I used a 1/4 inch drill bit, expanded those holes. Now the other thing I did is that this hole right here is the matching hole right here that the expanding rivet came out of, which is not here. So I also took this opportunity to hold this up, measured against the hole where that 8mm bolt goes, and drilled the hole so I can put the expanding rivet in as well. What I also find, it helps hold it into place very nicely. So when we fit this back into place, I'm going to put this expanding rivet in here and on both sides, which helps hold it all into place. So let me fit it back in, and then we're going to be putting these expanding rivets in to hold this down. All right, so this has really come together. I'm really, really pleased. These expanding rivets are working extremely well. Now, a couple of things. First of all, like I said, you put in the corners, it can help hold it all in place for you. Push really hard to get these up as far as you can. Now, when you measure and drill these tabs, and as you see, I don't have a rivet in that one yet. So you really want to push everything up as tight as it can possibly be, and then you mark them with a pencil exactly where the hole would be, and that's when you drill them. So when I talked about drilling a few minutes ago, because you want these as flush as possible when you put these in. So you put in the rivet and push in the expanding pin, and this is great. I mean, this is absolutely rock solid now. This doesn't move or give at all. Even to the point where I have not all the rivets in. So I don't have one here in the middle of these middle 4. I don't have one on this side because actually I'm running out of rivets. I had some extras, but I'm running out. Now, well, here's what I also did in this case, that I cheated a little bit. So if you ended up in the same situation that I am. Now, this tab, for whatever reason, was a little bit short. So it's up and as flush as it's going to be. It's not going to come in any further, but I found that I couldn't get it in far enough to get one of these expanding rivets in. So I took one side of the rivet and flexed it up, slid in the bottom side and slid in the pin through the hole, and it's tight. So it works really well. Now, this is also an opportunity to go ahead and put these base rivets in that you took off when you were underneath the car. Now, I've also noticed in this case, I have a little bit of an alignment problem here and here for these holes. It doesn't seem to quite want to go. Now, here's what I find though. If I bend on this a little bit, I can get it to fit. I'm also out of rivets. So what I'm actually going to do is, for now, I'm going to leave these 2 empty. Now, if you've got enough rivets, then don't leave them empty. But if I bend this down a little bit, I can get it to line up, which I'm going to do another time. And I can easily get to these underneath the car later. I'm going to order some more rivets. Most importantly right now is all the rivets on the inside. So make sure that you have all the ones in that'll fit, everything that's going to be super tight, and it'll fit perfectly. And then at this point, we can actually look to start to put this back on. Hey, guess what? I found 2 more rivets. One last look before we put it away, and again, I'm going to keep those off for now because I didn't find 4. But as you can see, I've got plastic rivets throughout. It fits really, really well. I've done this before with zip ties, like I mentioned, and they just simply were not working. This really seems to be the superior way. This thing is in super rock solid now, maybe even stronger than the OEM was. So now all you need to do is go back and rehang it back on the car. So I'll set up to show you how that's done, but again, you really want to grab it by the middle, carry it up to the car, reach in and be plugging your PDCs back in, and then we just rehang it. It's super simple. All right, y'all, so as you walk back up here, the nice thing about these clips here on the side, and forgive any shadows, is you can kind of line it up with those clips, and they can help you hold it in place. But before you do that, you have to have enough room to get your PDCs on. So you really just kind of have to hold it in place with you or with a friend, snap them into place, make sure they click when they go on. You can feel a little click in each PDC, but walk through them all and get them all plugged back in as you go through them. So there's 1, there's 2, here goes 3. They really only go on one way, which is nice as well. You can't plug them in backwards. And the corner ones tend to be a little bit shorter in cabling too. But just make sure they're all plugged in really nicely. Like that one didn't go all the way in and click. There we go, so it's clicked. That way they're not loose. Okay, so once that's done, just carefully take it up kind of tuck it into place. The nice thing about these corner clips is that once you get it lined up, you can line it up into those clips and press it in just like that. Now this side will hold and you don't have to worry about dropping it. You can do the other side as well, just like that. All right, and once those clips are in, you don't have to worry about this falling off anymore. So all good to go. So now just reverse everything that you've done before. You've got all of these in. You're gonna wanna walk it around and I'll show you those corners as we tuck it in and we get good fitment because we don't want our fitment to be off. But you're almost done. All right, so the nice thing about these designs is that fitment tends to be very easy because there's a whole series of little gaps and bumps that all fit back in, kind of like a puzzle piece that fit in just perfectly. So as you can tell, with very little effort, I've got really perfect fitment. My gap is just exactly right. I don't have to worry about adjustment or trying to mess with it at all. But make sure that it's smooth. So when I first put this in, this clip went in just fine. The whole line went in just fine. But I had a little bit of a bump right here. If you ran your finger down it, you could feel that between those two panels, it wasn't even. So I just pulled it back out again, pressed this corner in first, got it to set in first, and then the rest just snapped right into place and was just fine without any issues whatsoever. Okay, so now we're in simple reassembly now. So make sure to put your corner screws back in, your T20s right here. So you pull your wheel well back, put that in, put the 3 bolts down the side, 3 bolts across the bottom, those 4 bolts across the middle, and the same on the other side. We'll touch base really quickly on putting the lights back on and you're almost done. All right, so the bumper is all back on along the sides and here along the top. I haven't done the bottom apron yet. I'll just walk through that really quickly for you in just a moment, but it's really straightforward. It's just those 8mm bolts and all the way across. But let's do the lights here really quickly. They're just as easy to put back on as you took off. And sometimes it's a good lesson to learn because if you ever have to change a bulb. So make sure your doors are still open and then just slide it into place. Now there's a little post right here that you're gonna fit back on a little kind of rubber grommet right here. And it takes a little bit of fiddling to get it. So you just kind of take a good hold of it, slide it back. You gotta get the rain duct under the armature for your trunk. You just take it and just fit it back and you can see where it starts to line up. Make sure that's on the posts as well. And then just line it up just like that. And you'll feel that little ball kind of joint go into that little rubber grommet. There, just like that. And then tighten down the 10mm. So don't forget though, which I just did, obviously, don't forget to plug your light back in. So plug your light back in on both sides, do both sides, and then we'll show the bottom underneath and you're done. All right, so here from underneath, I haven't put them in yet, but just as a reminder of where they are, you've got 1, 2, 3 here in this corner as well. And then of course you've got tucked back in here, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then the 3 on the other side. So go ahead and get all those in and you're all done. Go ahead and clean up, put your tools away. Well done. All right, y'all, all done. So go ahead and clean up and put your tools away. Make sure to double check all of your fitment and everything is all back together. You shouldn't have any leftover parts. And if you follow the same methodology I did, you're gonna need a few more. Like I mentioned before, everything you'll need will be listed in the description below as far as tools and part numbers and everything else that you could possibly need to get this job done yourself. As you can tell, it really isn't that hard. It just takes a little bit of time, a little bit of knowledge, and a few simple tools, and you can easily make this change yourself. I don't know why you would pay a shop to do work like this at, you know, 150 to what, 200 bucks an hour. Why would you do that when you can easily do it yourself? Now, in addition, please make sure to check out the rest of my series. So CT Carbon makes a fantastic kit. It is the M Performance M2 CS style kit, which is what I'm installing on the car. And I'm gonna do the entire set. So if you check it out, this is only a part of a series of all of the rest of the kit as well. Please make sure to check that out. Thank you to CT Carbon for making such a fantastic product. It really is great, looks fantastic. I am excited to have this on my car. Please make sure to click subscribe and the little alarm bell. It makes a huge difference to my channel, and I have a ton of content coming. I can't wait to show you. I'll see you on my next video.